Hi, I'm Anne-Marie with Speak Confident English, and welcome to your Confident English Wednesday lesson. This is exactly where you want to be every Wednesday if your goal is to advance your English language skills, improve your confidence, and your fluency in English. So it's February, and where I live, that means it's the middle of winter. I live in the northern hemisphere, so we're in the very dead middle of winter. Where I come from, that means that it's usually gray every day. The days are very short. The temperatures are extremely cold or frigid. There is often snow and ice on the ground, and sometimes we have that in between snow and ice, which is slush. Slush is when snow partially melts and it gets really dirty and ugly. So it's not the nicest time of the year. In fact, it can kind of be miserable or depressing, to be honest. If you live in the southern hemisphere right now, where it's the middle of summer, I'm super jealous, and I hope that you're enjoying the sun and the warmth because that is what I'm dreaming of right now. But for all of us, sometimes we need a little something to lift our spirits, to give us a little bit of joy and brightness in our everyday life. So today we're going to focus on idioms because I know you love them. Idioms, of course, are used constantly by native speakers. We use them in conversation, TV shows, movies, podcasts, songs. So the more that you understand idioms, the more that you know them, the easier it is to understand and use them in everyday English. So this week, our Confident English lesson is focused on idioms that include words that are cold, snow, ice, all related to things that are a little bit like the winter. Now, you can use these every day. We don't only use these during the winter time. We use them all through the year, but they happen to focus on very cold things. So let's brighten your day and learn some fun new idioms. In this video lesson, I'm going to focus on some of my favorite idioms from today's lesson, and I'll let you know a little bit more about what they mean and where they come from, why we use them. But of course, in the online lesson, there are several more that you can use, plus some very useful vocabulary and a quiz at the end. So my first favorite idiom from today's list is to be on thin ice. Imagine a lake that has ice on the top. Some of us come from places where during the winter lakes freeze over and there's ice on top. But if the ice isn't very thick and you walk on the ice, it could break and you could fall into some really cold, frigid, terrible water. And you don't want to do that. It's very risky. So the idiom to walk on thin ice or to be on thin ice means that you're in a risky or dangerous situation, and sometimes we use it to warn someone. For example, in the online lesson, I talked about a woman who is on thin ice at work because she's been late several times, and if she's late once more, she might get fired. So she's in a really risky position. My second favorite idiom from today's online lesson is the tip of the iceberg. If you know what an iceberg is, then you know that usually we only see the very top of it, above the water or above the surface. But underneath, down below, there is much more that is unseen, and we maybe don't know just how big it is or how great the risk might be. So when we say that something is just the tip of the iceberg, it's a way of saying that it's just the beginning and we don't know how big it is, we don't know all the consequences, we don't know how far it will go. For example, if we talk about idioms, today I have a list of 8 idioms for you, but these idioms are just the tip of the iceberg in English because there are so many of them. So it's just the beginning. Number 3, the snowball effect. If you imagine that you want to make a snowman, you of course start with just one handful or scoop of snow, and you start to form more handfuls of snow into a ball. But eventually you need to make it much bigger, and to do that more quickly, you start to roll it on the ground to collect more snow and make it bigger and bigger at a faster rate. That is the background of the snowball effect and how we use it when we want to say that the consequences of an action are increasing at a faster rate over time. So for example, if you study a little bit of English every day, you will notice a snowball effect in your English abilities. Of course, I mean that in a positive way. Consequences can always be positive or negative. So if you study a little bit of English every day, you'll notice a positive snowball effect in your English abilities. Number 4 is the cold shoulder. So this is your shoulder. And if you imagine that when you're really angry with someone, frustrated, maybe you're in an argument and you just don't want to talk to them, you don't want to say anything to them, you're just silent, you are giving someone the cold shoulder. If you imagine it's like you're turning your back to that person and you're refusing to speak or to talk to them for a period of time because you're frustrated or angry. And the final idiom for today's video lesson is to get cold feet. We use this idiom when someone loses the courage to do something that is risky or a big, important life event. So that could be bungee jumping or skydiving. That could be giving a presentation in English or even getting married. If you know someone who at the last minute has decided not to get married because they're too nervous or not to bungee jump because they're too nervous, then they got cold feet. And with that, you have 5 new idioms to add to your daily English. Of course, there are a few more in the online lesson, plus some bonus vocabulary and a quiz, so make sure to do that lesson and take the opportunity to practice. I hope that this brightened your day, brought some joy in the middle of winter. Thank you, as always, for joining me. I love having you here every Wednesday, and I'll see you next week for your confident English lesson.